I never imagined a Tuesday night in October would change the course of my life. But then again, the moments that matter most rarely arrive with a warning. That evening, the Arlington Community Theater seemed smaller than ever. Its red velvet. Seats sparsely filled for a performance billed as an experimental exploration of human connection. At 59, I'd long since grown weary of predictable shows. The ink on my divorce papers was barely dry, and I found myself craving anything that might jolt me awake from the dullness that had settled over my days. The same way dust collects on forgotten translations stacked in my study. I chose a seat in the back row, somewhere I could disappear if the performance proved too avant-garde for my taste. The stage lights dimmed as actors began moving in slow, deliberate patterns, their voices weaving together in what sounded more like poetry than dialogue. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" The voice belonged to a woman sliding past me, blonde hair catching the stage lights as she squeezed into the seat directly to my left. She was younger than me, maybe mid-30s, with striking blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "No, go ahead," I whispered, noting how she moved with the confidence of someone half her apparent age. Our hands brushed as we both reached for the program dropped between our seats. The brief contact sent an unexpected jolt through me, something I hadn't felt in years. "Sorry," she murmured, but her eyes lingered on mine for a moment longer than necessary. I found myself stealing glances at her profile during the first act. She watched the performance with intense concentration, occasionally nodding or tilting her head, as if parsing some deeper meaning from the abstract movement on stage. When intermission arrived, she turned to me immediately. "What did you think of that opening sequence?" Honestly, I'm not sure I understood it. I admitted that woman in red, the way she kept circling back to the same spot. It reminded me of grief patterns. How we revisit the same emotional spaces even when we think we've moved forward. Her insight surprised me. Most people my age struggled to find meaning in experimental theater. Yet this younger woman had articulated something I'd felt but couldn't name. "You have an interesting perspective," I said. "I'm Claire Bennett, Morgan Prescott. I just moved here to curate the new contemporary wing at the museum." She smiled, and I noticed how it transformed her entire face. "Are you local?" "Born and raised. I work as a freelance translator, mostly French and Italian literature." "That must be fascinating work. Living between languages, finding ways to preserve meaning across cultures." The way she said it made my mundane profession sound almost romantic. When the lights dimmed for the second act, I found myself hoping the performance would run long, giving us more time to talk afterward. As the curtain fell and applause filled the small theater, Morgan gathered her coat and turned to me with what looked like nervous determination. "This might sound forward, but would you like to grab coffee? There's something about tonight, this play, our conversation. I'd hate for it to end here." Standing in that theater, surrounded by the chatter of other audience members filing toward the exits, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. The sensation of standing at the edge of something unknown and thrilling. "I'd like that," I heard myself saying. The coffee shop 3 blocks from the theater stayed open until midnight, its warm amber lighting a stark contrast to the October chill creeping through Arlington streets. Morgan chose a corner table near the window, and I found myself studying her more carefully as she settled across from me. She moved with purpose, even in something as simple as arranging her coat and purse. Her blonde hair fell just past her shoulders, and when she leaned forward to speak, those blue eyes held an intensity that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. "So tell me about your translation work," she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. "What draws you to French and Italian literature specifically?" "Languages chose me more than I chose them," I replied. In college, I fell in love with the rhythm of Romance languages. The way Italian flows like music, how French can be both precise and sensual in the same sentence. Sensual. She repeated the word thoughtfully. I imagine there's an intimacy in translation. Getting inside an author's mind, finding their voice in another language. Her observation struck me as remarkably perceptive. Most people view translation as mechanical work, but Morgan understood its deeper nature. What about you? How does someone end up curating contemporary art in Arlington? Morgan laughed, a sound both musical and slightly self-deprecating. Career suicide. According to my former colleagues in Boston, I had a comfortable position at a prestigious gallery, but I felt trapped by expectations. Arlington offered me the chance to build something from scratch. That takes courage or stupidity. The jury's still out. She paused, studying my face. What about courage? Your divorce must have required some. I hadn't expected such directness, but something about Morgan made honesty feel safer than deflection. 23 years of marriage ended 8 months ago. I'm still figuring out who I am without that identity. And who are you discovering? The question hung between us like a challenge. In the coffee shop's golden light, with this intriguing woman leaning forward with genuine interest, I felt layers of myself I'd forgotten existed beginning to stir. Someone who apparently enjoys experimental theater and spontaneous coffee dates with museum curators. Morgan's smile was radiant. I'm glad we're both discovering new things about ourselves. We talked until the barista started stacking chairs, covering topics that ranged from European art movements to the challenge of preserving cultural authenticity and translation. Morgan's mind moved quickly, making connections I wouldn't have expected, challenging my assumptions about younger generations. I should probably let you get home, she said reluctantly as we stepped onto the sidewalk. This was wonderful, Morgan. I can't remember the last time I had such an engaging conversation. Would you like to do it again? Maybe dinner this weekend? Standing there under the streetlight, October air sharp against our faces, I felt that familiar flutter of possibility. Morgan was waiting for my answer with a mixture of hope and vulnerability that reminded me what it felt like to be desired. I'd like that very much. She smiled and touched my arm briefly before walking toward her car. That simple contact lingered on my skin during the entire drive home, and I found myself replaying our conversation, analyzing every word and gesture like a text I was trying to translate. For the first time in months, I fell asleep thinking about tomorrow instead of yesterday. The next Thursday, I discovered Morgan Prescott was not a woman who left things to chance. I'd been frequenting Cornerstone Books and Coffee for 3 years, always ordering the same vanilla latte at precisely 2:30 each afternoon. It was my reward after completing morning translation sessions, a small ritual that marked the transition between work and leisure. This particular afternoon, I found Morgan already seated at what I'd come to think of as my table, laptop open, appearing deeply absorbed in museum catalogs. Claire, her face lit up when she spotted me. What a pleasant coincidence. Except it didn't feel like coincidence. Something in her smile suggested careful planning. Researching your next exhibition? I asked, settling into the chair across from her, among other things. Her fingers drummed against the table. I've been thinking about our conversation the other night. Your insights about preserving cultural authenticity resonated with something I'm working on. Over the next week, these supposed chance encounters became a pattern. Morgan appeared at Cornerstone Books 3 more times, always with plausible reasons, but timing that felt increasingly intentional. Not that I minded. Our conversations had become the highlight of my days. Morgan possessed a rare combination of intellectual curiosity and emotional intelligence that challenged me in ways I hadn't experienced in years. You're being pursued, I finally told myself Friday evening, standing before my bathroom mirror. The realization sent an unexpected thrill through me. The following week, Morgan's approach shifted from subtle to direct. There's a gallery opening tomorrow night, she said during our now regular afternoon coffee. The artist explores themes of transformation and second beginnings. I thought you might find it interesting. Are you asking me on a date, Morgan? Would that be terrible? Her vulnerability in that moment was disarming. This confident, accomplished woman suddenly looked like a nervous teenager asking someone to prom. No, it wouldn't be terrible at all. The gallery opening was smaller than I'd expected. Perhaps 40 people mingling among large abstract canvases that seemed to pulse with emotional energy. Morgan moved through the crowd with professional ease, introducing me as her friend while keeping one hand resting lightly on my lower back. "What do you think of this one?" she asked, stopping before a painting of swirling blues and golds. "It reminds me of water in transition, not quite ocean, not quite river. Liminal spaces, places where transformation happens." The way she said it made me wonder if we were still discussing art. As the evening wound down, Morgan walked me to my car in the gallery's small parking lot. October had surrendered to November, and our breath formed small clouds in the crisp air. "Claire, I need to be honest about something." "What's that?" "Those coffee shop encounters weren't coincidental. I may have asked the barista about your schedule." I laughed despite myself. "I figured as much. Are you upset?" Instead of answering with words, I stepped closer to her. Morgan's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't retreat. "I haven't done this in a very long time," I whispered. "Done what?" "Kissed someone who pursued me so charmingly." When our lips met, it was gentle at first, tentative, but something ignited between us, and the kiss deepened with a hunger that surprised us both. Morgan's hand found the back of my neck, her fingers threading through my hair. We broke apart, breathlessly, foreheads touching. "That was worth the wait," Morgan murmured. "Was it everything you hoped for when you started stalking me at the coffee shop?" "Better, much better." Driving home that night, I touched my lips and smiled. For the first time since my divorce, I felt truly alive. 2 weeks after our first kiss, Morgan and I sat across from each other in my favorite Italian restaurant, sharing stories that felt increasingly personal with each glass of wine. 23 years is a long time to be with someone," Morgan said carefully, cutting into her salmon. "What happened?" I'd been dreading this question, but Morgan's gentle curiosity made honesty feel possible. "We grew apart so gradually that we didn't notice until we were strangers sharing a house." I took a sip of wine, gathering courage. Robert wanted a traditional wife who'd given up her ambitions. I wanted a partner who saw me as more than domestic. Decoration. That must have been lonely, profoundly. The worst part wasn't the fighting. It was the silence. Years of polite conversation about nothing that mattered. Morgan reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "I can't imagine you settling for that now." "No, I can't either." "What scares you about starting over at 59? Her directness caught me off guard. Everything. Dating at this age feels like learning a foreign language without a dictionary. And dating women specifically, especially that. I turned my palm up, interlacing our fingers. I've always known I was attracted to women, but I buried that part of myself so deep I almost forgot it existed. My marriage was safe, expected. This feels like stepping off a cliff. Morgan's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "What would you tell a friend facing the same situation?" "That 59 isn't too old to be happy." Smart advice. After dinner, Morgan followed me home for coffee that we never made. My living room felt different with her presence, more alive somehow. She examined my bookshelves while I opened a bottle of wine, her fingers trailing along spine after spine. "Your collection is fascinating. French poetry next to Italian cookbooks. German philosophy beside American romance novels. I don't believe in segregating knowledge by categories." "Is that why you became a translator? The refusal to stay in neat boxes?" She had a way of seeing patterns I hadn't recognized in myself. Maybe I just liked the challenge of finding perfect words for imperfect feelings. Morgan turned from the bookshelf and moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something light and floral with underlying warmth. "What words would you use to describe this?" she asked softly. "Describe what?" "Whatever this is between us." The wine in her proximity made me bold. Terrifying, exhilarating, unexpected. All the best things are. This time when she kissed me, we had privacy and time. Her lips were soft, insistent, and when her tongue brushed against mine, I felt a jolt of desire I'd forgotten was possible. My hands rested at her hips, drawing her nearer until our bodies aligned. "Clara," she breathed against my lips. "What?" I need you to know this matters. You aren't some trial or fleeting diversion. What am I then? A person I'm growing fond of quicker than I imagined. I guided her to the sofa where we curled up, my head against her neck. For the first time in ages, physical closeness felt easy, not forced. Tell me about your past loves, I said, drawing shapes on her skin, not many deep ones. I came out during my master's degree, which wasn't accepted by my traditional parents. Past much of my 20s, showing I could thrive in my career regardless of their objections. Do they know who you date now? We avoid the topic. They act as if I'm just perpetually alone. I act as if their quiet doesn't sting. Robin's openness shattered me. Here was this stunning, successful woman bearing scars from those who should have embraced her completely. Their mistake, I whispered, kissing her brow. We remained like that until almost midnight, speaking and caressing with the gentle caution of two people uncovering something rare and delicate. When Robin finally departed, she kissed me farewell at the entrance with a softness that left me unsteady. Pleasant dreams, Clara. Seeing her car lights vanish down the road, I understood my fear had gone. Whatever this was, whatever it might be, I was willing to learn. Saturday outings with Robin had turned cherished, our custom of finding Arlingtons. Unseen spots is one. This cool November day led us to the lakeside estate sale, sorting through the gathered belongings of a lifetime displayed on tidy grass. See this, Robin stated, tracing the detailed borders of a vintage writing table. The skill is exceptional. The item was beautiful, rich mahogany with complex designs and bronze fittings that had softened with time. It whispered of days when exchanging letters was a craft, not rushed digital messages. It would suit your home, I mentioned, watching her face brighten while she checked the slots and sections. You believe? It isn't too much, Robin. You're creating a fresh start. You merit lovely possessions. She haggled with the sale manager, while I drifted past displays of glassware and gems. Considering how items last beyond their keepers, holding tailies will never learn. Later, we labored to guide the desk up 3 levels to Robin's flat, chuckling as we twisted through close turns and slim openings. Why didn't we pay for helpers? Robin puffed, stopping on step 2. Because we're determined and irrationally confident in our strength. Talk for yourself, I keep very fit. Oh, really? I joked, noting how her close sweater accentuated her shape. Once placed by the window in her sitting room, the dusk changed the area. Robin smoothed her palms along its top with clear delight. I adore how the sun touches it here. I can picture scripting actual letters, like in past times. When did you last get a real letter? Ages back. Email ruined courtship, yes. While Robin prepared drinks, I investigated the dusk's many parts, intrigued by its clever build. 1. Slot appeared shallower than possible, and when I pushed at its rear wall, I felt it shift a little. Robin, see this. She returned as I loosened the concealed section, showing a thin hidden space. Brilliant design, she said. Is something in there? My touch found the corner of something thin. I removed an envelope faded with years, labeled in faint blue ink. Shall we read it? Robin wondered. The stamp showed October 1962. No sender's name, but the neat writing hinted a female author. I believe we should. Inside on ivory paper was a message that stole my air. My beloved Beatrice, I track the hours until I embrace you again. The world would judge us, but my soul feels no disgrace in adoring you. When I shut my eyes, I view your smile. I recall the flavor of your mouth, the sound of my name spoken by you in the night. Tomorrow I depart for California, but separation cannot lessen what flares between us. Wait for me, my dear. Our moment will arrive when we may love freely without dread or concealment. Until then, understand that each dusk recalls the gold in your locks. Each dawn bird brings my affection to you over the distance. Always yours, Eleanor. Robin and I gaped at one another, the page shaking in my grip. 2 women, Robin murmured. In 1962, the bravery this required to sense this deeply in a society that rejected them. I reflected on my own path, how long I'd concealed my reality. Even from me, these lovers had endured much larger barriers, yet their affection had lasted long. Enough to be found by two other women tumbling for each other 6 decades on. Do you believe they succeeded, Eleanor and Beatrice? I pray so, I replied, though we both understood the chances were slim. Robin took the letter softly, reviewing it again. The fire in these lines, nothing held back despite all they hazarded. It renders our fears minor by contrast. Does it frighten you less now, what we're building? I watched Robin, this incredible woman who'd chased me with such resolve, who'd brought unanticipated light into my structured world. Yes, it does. Robin set the letter down carefully and stepped closer to me. They were bold enough to cherish one another when it might have ruined them. We can be bold enough to cherish one another when it could very well redeem us. Standing there in the afternoon light streaming through her windows, surrounded by the tangible proof that love persists across decades and obstacles, I felt something shift inside me. The last of my resistance crumbled. I'm ready to be brave, I whispered. Morgan's smile was radiant as she pulled me into her arms. Eleanor and Beatrice's letter bearing witness to our own beginning. The letter from Eleanor and Beatrice became our touchstone. Over the following weeks, Morgan had it professionally preserved and displayed it near the antique desk, a daily reminder of love's persistence across impossible odds. Our relationship deepened in ways I hadn't expected. Morgan helped me translate fragments of French poetry we'd found tucked behind the letter, her presence making the intimate work of interpretation feel like collaboration rather than solitude. Listen to this line, I said one evening, reading from a Verlaine poem. It cries in my heart like it rains on the town. Close, but you're missing. The music, the repetition of sounds, the way the French mimics actual rainfall. Morgan leaned closer, her breath warm against my neck. Show me, as I repeated the line, emphasizing the liquid consonants. She traced slow circles on my back. These translation sessions had become increasingly charged, intellectual intimacy bleeding into physical desire. You have beautiful hands, she murmured, watching me write. They're old hands. They're elegant hands. Hands that create meaning from chaos. 3 weeks before Christmas, Morgan invited me to the museum's annual gala, their biggest fundraising event of the year. Are you certain? It's quite public. I want you there as my date, not just my friend. The gala was held in the museum's main gallery. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over Arlington's cultural elite. Morgan looked stunning in a black dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. You clean up well, I told her, adjusting her necklace. You're one to talk. That blue dress is devastating on you. Throughout the evening, Morgan's colleagues approached us with curious smiles. She introduced me consistently as her girlfriend, the words sending little thrills through me each time. So, you're the translator, said Victoria Sterling, the museum's board chair. Morgan mentions you frequently. All good things, I hope. She's quite taken with you. I glanced at Morgan across the room, deep in conversation with a potential donor. Even in professional mode, she was magnetic. The feeling is mutual. After the formal presentations, Morgan and I escaped the sculpture garden, needing air and privacy. That went well, she said, slipping her hand into mine. Your colleagues seem nice, most of them. A few board members are still adjusting to having an openly gay curator. Is that why you hesitated to bring me tonight? Partly, but mostly I wanted to be sure we were ready for scrutiny. Are we? Morgan turned to face me in the moonlight, her expression serious. I'm falling in love with you, Claire Bennett. Completely and terrifyingly in love. My heart stopped. Morgan, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Instead of words, I kissed her with everything I felt, but couldn't yet voice. Her response was immediate and passionate. Months of careful restraint giving way to raw need. Come home with me tonight, I whispered against her lips. Are you sure? I've never been more certain of anything. Back at my house, we moved with new urgency. Morgan's dress fell to the floor. In my bedroom, followed by my own. In the soft lamplight, her body was everything I'd imagined and more. Curves and angles that fit perfectly against mine. When she kissed my throat, I arched beneath her with a gasp that surprised us both. Her touch was reverent, exploring with patient thoroughness that left me trembling. I traced the line of her spine, marveling at skin like silk, responding to her soft moans with growing confidence. Our bodies found their rhythm naturally, moving together with an intimacy that transcended mere physical pleasure. When release finally claimed us, we clung to each other, hearts racing in perfect synchronization. Afterward, we lay entwined. Morgan's head on my chest, her fingers drawing lazy patterns on my skin. That was, she began. Perfect, I finished. I love you, she said quietly. I know it's fast, but I love you. I love you too, I replied, the words feeling both foreign and absolutely right. God help me. I love you too. Morgan lifted her head till. Look at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. Really? Really? She kissed me again, soft and sweet, and I knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, we would face it together. The morning after the museum gala, Morgan's overnight bag sat beside my coffee maker like a promise of permanence. I was scrambling eggs when my daughter Emma's key turned in the front door. Mom, I brought those documents you needed to sign for the divorce settlement, Emma called out. My blood froze. Morgan emerged from the bedroom wearing my bathrobe, hair tousled from sleep, looking thoroughly at home in my space. Oh. Emma stopped dead in the doorway, taking in the intimate domestic scene. I didn't realize you had company. Emma, this is Morgan Prescott. Morgan, my daughter Emma. Morgan extended her hand with professional grace. The Emma's eyes moved between us with growing understanding. Nice to meet you, Emma said carefully. I should probably come back later. Don't leave on my account, Morgan said, though her smile had become strained. After Emma left with promises to call later, Morgan and I sat at my kitchen table in heavy silence. She knows, Morgan said finally. She's protective of me after the divorce. This is new territory for all of us. How new exactly? I met her eyes. You're the first woman I've ever been with. The first person I've brought home since Robert. Morgan absorbed this information quietly, no pressure. Then that afternoon, Emma called as promised. Mom, we need to talk. We met at the coffee shop, where Morgan and I had shared our first conversation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Are you having some kind of crisis? Emma asked without preamble. I'm happy for the first time in years. Is that a crisis? You're dating a woman half your age. She was 34, Emma, hardly a child. This isn't you, Mom. You've never shown interest in women before. Maybe because I never allowed myself to. Emma's frustration was palpable. Dad's been gone 8 months. Don't you think this is rebound behavior? Her words stung because they echoed my own fears. What would convince you? It's not time, distance, perspective. Meanwhile, Morgan was facing her own battles. Tuesday evening, she arrived at my house looking defeated. Board meeting? I asked, pouring wine. Victoria Sterling pulled me aside afterward. Apparently, some donors were talking about our very public display of affection at the gala. What kind of talk? The kind that questions whether someone like me should represent the museum at community events. Someone like you. Young, gay, unprofessional enough to bring her girlfriend to work functions. I felt anger rise in my chest. You've transformed that museum's contemporary wing. They should be grateful. Should be and aren't the same thing. Morgan collapsed onto my couch. Maybe Emma has a point. Maybe we're moving too fast. You're letting other people's prejudices influence us. I'm being realistic about consequences. What consequences exactly? Morgan was quiet for a long moment. I could lose my job, Claire, and you could lose your relationship with your daughter. So, what are you suggesting? Maybe we slow down, see each other less publicly until things settle. The suggestion felt like a physical blow. You want to hide us? I want to protect us by acting ashamed of what we have, by being strategic about how we navigate this. I thought of Eleanor and Beatrice's letter, of women who'd loved in shadows. Because they had no choice. We had choices they never had, yet we were still discussing hiding. I won't go backward, Morgan. I spent too many years hiding parts of myself. I'm not asking you to hide yourself. I'm asking you to be patient with what? Your career, other people's. Comfort levels, my daughter's adjustment period. With all of it, this is complicated. Love is always complicated. That doesn't make it wrong. Morgan stood up, gathering her jacket. I need some time to think about us, about whether we can make this work without destroying everything we've built separately. After she left, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the space where she'd been. For the first time since we'd met, I wondered if courage was enough to overcome the forces arrayed against us. The next morning brought no calls, no texts, no unexpected appearances at the coffee shop. Morgan had vanished as suddenly as she'd entered my life, leaving me to question whether I'd imagined the whole beautiful, terrifying experience. But Eleanor's letter still sat on Morgan's desk across town, proof that some loves are worth fighting for. Even when the world insists they're impossible. A week passed with no word from Morgan. I threw myself into translation work, losing myself in other people's words because my own felt too dangerous to examine. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, but it was never her. I'd reverted to my old isolation patterns, declining invitations, avoiding the coffee shop where we'd met, staying home with only my books for company. The silence felt familiar, but no longer comforting. On Thursday evening, rain drummed against my windows as I worked late on a particularly difficult passage from Marguerite Duras. The doorbell rang at 9:30, startling me from concentration. Morgan stood on my porch, soaked from the storm, her blonde hair dark with water, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside to let her in, grabbing towels from the linen closet while she dripped on my hardwood floors. "You disappeared," I said, wrapping a towel around her shoulders. I needed space to think clearly. "And what did you conclude?" Morgan looked around my living room as if seeing it for the first time. That I'm an idiot, that I let fear make my decisions instead of love. "What changed your mind?" I read Eleanor's letter again. Really read it. She wrote about waiting for a time when they could love openly without fear. I realized we already have that time, and I was throwing it away. I waited, needing to hear more. I also got fired. "What?" Victoria Sterling called me into her office yesterday. "Budget cuts," she said, but we both knew better. My position was eliminated effective immediately. "Morgan, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. It clarified everything. I was trying to protect a job that never really accepted me anyway." "What will you? I've been offered a position in Chicago. Better pay, more progressive environment." She paused, meeting my eyes, but I turned it down. "Why?" "Because everything I want is here. You're here." The rain continued its assault on the windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy around us. Morgan stepped closer, her hand reaching for mine. "I love you, Claire." Not carefully or strategically, or with reservations, completely. The way Eleanor loved Beatrice, the way they both deserved to be loved. "The way we deserve to be loved," I whispered. "Yes," I pulled her against me, feeling her shiver from cold and emotion. "I love you too. This week without you is hell. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I let other people's opinions make me doubt us." "What about your career? Your future in Arlington?" "I'm starting my own consulting firm. Art acquisition for private collectors. I already have 3 potential clients. And Emma, the gossip, all the complications you were worried about." Morgan's hands framed my face, thumbs brushing away tears. I didn't realize had fallen. Let them talk. Let Emma adjust on her own timeline. I can't live my life managing other people's comfort levels. "Are you certain?" Instead of answering with words, Morgan kissed me with desperate intensity. Months of careful restraint dissolving in the storm outside. This kiss was different from our others. Raw with need and the relief of almost losing each other. "Show me how certain you are," I whispered against her lips. We made it to my bedroom this time, clothes falling away as rain continued its rhythm outside. Morgan's touch was urgent now, mapping my body with new possessiveness. I responded with equal fervor, claiming her skin with kisses and caresses that drew soft cries from her throat. When she moved above me, eyes locked on mine, we found ourselves again in movements both tender and demanding. Our bodies spoke what words couldn't capture, promises and apologies and declarations of forever. The storm outside seemed to mirror Our passion building to a crescendo that left us breathless and clinging to each other. Afterward, we lay tangled in my sheets, listening to the rain settle into gentle pattering. "Move in with me," I said suddenly. "What?" "I don't want to waste any more time being careful." "Move in with me?" Morgan propped herself up on her elbow, studying my face. "Are you serious? We're not getting any younger." Eleanor and Beatrice had to hide their love. We don't. Let's stop acting like we do. What about Emma? She adjusts or she won't. Either way, she's an adult who can make her own choices about how to handle mine. Morgan's smile was radiant. Yes, 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 I'll move in with you. Yes, I want to stop hiding. Yes. To whatever comes next. I pulled her down for another kiss, tasting the salt of happy tears mixed with rain. Outside, the storm was passing, leaving behind the clean scent of new beginnings. 3 months after the storm that changed everything, Morgan's belongings had settled into my house like they'd always belonged there. Her books mingled with mine on the shelves. Her coffee mug claimed permanent residence beside mine in the kitchen, and her laptop shared space with my translation work on the dining room table. We'd framed Eleanor and Beatrice's letter and hung it in our bedroom, a daily reminder that love persists despite obstacles. Morgan had discovered more about their story through historical research, finding evidence that they'd eventually moved to California together, living as spinster friends for 47 years. They made it, Morgan announced one morning, showing me newspaper clippings. Eleanor died in 2009. Beatrice, 2 years later, same nursing home, rooms next to each other, 67 years together. I marveled. Gives me hope for us. My consulting firm had launched successfully with Morgan's business instincts proving invaluable. She'd found her niche connecting private collectors with emerging artists, using her museum experience to build trust with both sides. Emma had slowly warmed to our relationship, though progress came in carefully measured steps. She joined us for dinner twice, treating Morgan with polite curiosity rather than hostility. "She's protective of you," Morgan observed after Emma's second visit. "She's starting to see that you protect me too." "Do I? You make me braver. That's a kind of protection." This particular evening found us returning to the Arlington Community Theater, the same venue where we'd first met 9 months earlier. The experimental theater group was premiering a new production about love across generations. "Are you nervous?" Morgan asked, adjusting her coat as we approached the familiar red doors. "About the play or about being seen here together?" "Both. No, I'm exactly where I want to be." Inside, we chose seats in the same section where we'd first encountered each other. The theater was fuller this time, our relationship having survived its first year long enough to become established rather than scandalous. During intermission, we found ourselves surrounded by acquaintances and friends. Morgan's former museum colleagues mixing with my translation clients and neighbors. The conversations flowed easily. Our couplehood now accepted as simple fact rather than shocking revelation. "Remember when this felt impossible?" Morgan whispered as we returned to our seats. "Which part? Dating you or being happy?" "Both. The second." Act explored themes of second chances and unexpected love. The characters navigating obstacles that felt familiar yet manageable from our current perspective. When the lights dimmed for the final scene, Morgan's hand found mine in the darkness. "Emma?" she whispered. "What? Will you marry me?" My heart stopped. "Are you proposing during a play?" "I'm proposing during our play. The one that started right here." I turned to face her in the dim theater lighting, seeing tears in her eyes that matched my own. "Yes," I whispered back. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you. Yes to everything." We kissed as the curtain fell, applause washing over us like a blessing. Other audience members rose to leave, but we remained seated, holding each other in the space where our story had begun. "When?" Morgan asked eventually. "Soon. We've wasted enough time being careful." "Spring wedding?" "Perfect." Walking to our car afterward, Morgan slipped her arm through mine with familiar ease. Arlington streets looked different now, transformed from the lonely landscape of my divorce into something warm and welcoming. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Morgan asked. Which part? The loneliness or the pretending? The certainty? The predictability? I considered this as we drove through neighborhoods where I'd once felt invisible. I missed the safety of low expectations. But I wouldn't trade this uncertainty for that emptiness. Even when it's terrifying, especially then. At home, Morgan made tea while I lit candles. Our evening ritual establishing peace after the excitement of our impromptu engagement. Eleanor and Beatrice's letter caught the candle light from its frame. Their words about waiting for the right time to love, openly taking on new meaning. We're going to be okay, Morgan said, settling beside me on the couch. Better than okay. How do you know? Because we chose each other. Not once, but repeatedly. Every day, despite obstacles and fears and other people's opinions. Morgan curled against me, her head on my shoulder, wedding plans and future dreams flowing between us like shared breath. Outside, Arlington settled into evening quiet, a small city that had become home to an unexpected love story. At 59, I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Morgan had taught me that love isn't always convenient or predictable, but it's always worth fighting for. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight we were exactly where we belonged, wrapped in each other's arms, planning a future that once seemed impossible but now felt inevitable.